any gumbo dish that reflects the intertwined and complex lineages, cultures, and identity of Southern Louisiana. While there are many culturally significant foods in Louisiana, gumbo holds a unique place in the food hierarchy. Gumbo's origins of creating a big pot to share are still present today, and the lineage of gumbo demonstrates how traditions and recipes can be passed down. Gumbo is intertwined in the identity and heritage of many families in South Louisiana, and that's why I want to talk about it today. The way that I want to introduce a gumbo today is by looking at the different elements. So first you have the Holy Trinity, which is the basis vegetables in the gumbo. Consists of onion, celery, and bell pepper, and is a flavorful mixture that is used in most Creole and Cajun cuisine. Next, you have the spices. Some popular spices to use would be bay leaf and cayenne, but many others are added. Next is stock, and then some kind of thickener, and I'm going to go into more detail about those later. The variations of gumbo, poultry and andouille sausage, seafood, and gumbo aux herbes will determine your main ingredients. Poultry and andouille sausage and seafood are pretty self-explanatory, but gumbo aux herbes is based mostly on the use of many different greens and a meat stock. So some terms to know: roux, filet, and okra. These are the three thickening agents in gumbo. So first, a roux. A roux is a French technique that was introduced to the Cajuns and is a mixture of flour and fat that is heated to thin and then added to thicken the gumbo. It is the base of a gumbo and it adds a rich and nutty flavor. Next, you have filet, which is ground sassafras leaves, which was introduced to Cajuns by Choctaw Indians. It's mostly used in meat gumbos and in Bayou country. And it also thickens but gives an herbaceous flavor to the gumbo. And then okra. Okra has a long history. It was brought to the New World by enslaved peoples, and the term gumbo actually comes from the West term gombo, meaning okra. It's traditionally used in African stews and soups, and many scholars believe that it was then brought to Louisiana and reinterpreted with native ingredients that now has turned into our modern gumbo. So this kind of brings up the difference between Cajun versus Creole cuisine, and there is a difference. So I'm going to look at the different elements of the gumbo and how those play into Creole and Cajun cuisine. So what is a Cajun? A Cajun is someone who is from Acadiana, this red region of Louisiana. Cajun culture is syncretic, which means that it's been influenced by many other cultures, including French, African, Spanish, German, Native American, and Anglo-American settlers. And that's why it's so unique. This is a quote that I found when researching, and I think it really tells us what it means to be a Cajun and how they view food. So it says, food is a consuming passion in Cajun country where people live to eat, not the reverse. It provides gregarious folks a welcome excuse to gather, and thus holds an important part of the glue that holds society together. And I completely agree with this. You can definitely see this sentiment in South Louisiana. Next, Creole. Creole refers to people from New Orleans, but is a looser term that the people of New Orleans have really claimed. Creole cuisine is based on fresh and local ingredients and what you have available. It's a cuisine de terroir, or a cuisine of the territory. Gumbo has elements of both Creole and Cajun cuisine. And I want to talk a little bit more about this with Chef Frank Bryson, expert on gumbo. I'll be interviewing him to find out more about the difference between Creole and Cajun cuisine and why gumbo is important to both of these cultures. I'll also be discussing with him how this dish connects to his identity and New Orleans' identity as a whole.
Yeah, my name is Frank Bryson, and my wife Marna and I are the owner of Bryson's Restaurant in New Orleans. We've been open for 35 years. I'm born and raised right here in New Orleans. I started working in restaurants during my college years and discovered that I really loved it and decided to pursue it as a profession. And when I moved back home to New Orleans, after a couple of years, I started working as an apprentice at Commander's Palace with Chef Paul Prudhomme. Chef Paul then asked me to move over to K. Paul's Louisiana Kitchen when that restaurant first opened. And he taught me everything I know. And after 7 years, he and Kay, his wife, helped us open Brightson's restaurant.
So do you think you learned more about like you when you're cooking gumbo, do you base more of your recipes off of like what you grew up eating and learned from her, or mostly from your restaurant experience?
I think all of it. I think one of the things about growing up in Louisiana is that you automatically grow up with a great food heritage, and therefore an innate sensibility uh, about flavors and the components of a dish like gumbo. And then working in a restaurant, you learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And I learned techniques and things like that, and building flavors from Chef Paul.
What do you think the significance of being a chef is in New Orleans connected to like heritage and identity?
Well, I feel very fortunate to be a chef in New Orleans. Every day that I put on this white jacket, I'm putting on 300 years of tradition and history. And I think, you know, to work in this profession in New Orleans, I think it's America's most interesting city food-wise. And a lot of it is based on the diversity of cultures that have influenced and continue to influence our palates here in New Orleans. You know, we should talk about the difference between Cajun and
I
Creole.
was just about to ask you about that.
Sometimes it gets all lumped together, and that's fine too. But like working with Chef Paul, for instance, you know, I was born in New Orleans. He was born in Opelousas and Cajun country. And I quickly recognized how different our upbringings were and how different ways we approach things, even like gumbo. You know, he brought a gumbo to Cape Paul's that was a chicken and andouille sausage gumbo.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Mm, no, that's not gumbo." You know, it wasn't to me.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before. To me, gumbo has okra and seafood in it.
Mhm.
What I learned over the years is that there's many happy roads that bring you to the same happy place. And the beauty of gumbo is that it does, more than any other single dish in Louisiana cuisine, identifies us as Louisiana natives and Louisiana people, because it carries so much history. The Creole, I mean, Cajun is French. The Acadians that settled in Southwest Louisiana came from Nova Scotia, and they're French Catholics, and they lived off the land and off the sea. Creole, on the other hand, is the cuisine and culture of the city of New Orleans, which is not just French, but all the other many cultures that have influenced the way we eat and the way we live.
Whose role do you think it is to educate people about the origins of these dishes?
I think whoever makes it, and you know, particularly with visitors to the city, they need to get gumbo, and they want to.
Mhm.
And it's our job to convey in some way the importance of the dish and how strongly we identify with it. It represents us. It represents who we are through our cultural diversity. I think the beauty of food is in its diversity, and the beauty of life is in its diversity too. And gumbo carries that in a cup.
Thank you, Chef Frank, so much for talking with me and our audience about what gumbo is, how it connects to you and your identity and New Orleans identity in general. Like you talk about, gumbo really is a representation of New Orleans. It's syncretic, just like New Orleans. New Orleans has people from all over, and its culture really is unique because of so many different cultural aspects of different ethnic groups and identities that have come together. What I want to leave you with today is, why is gumbo important? I think it's important because I have a personal connection to it. And I would say that almost every person in Southern Louisiana would agree. Gumbo is at celebrations, it's passed down through families. It's a part of our identity, lineage, and heritage in a way that other food is not. And that's why I think it's important. I hope you enjoyed learning about gumbo today and want to learn more.